Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker again, and today is the 19th of May. It's hard to imagine May's half over already, but the year is 2024. And I talked last week about family. I'm going to talk this week about family, but I found another translation of the famous love chapter that Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians. And I wanted to share that with you. This is really neat, I think. This is 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, but with a different translation. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. At our house, we've been in the midst of a bathroom remodel. Elaine got a couple of guys to demolish the former tub and its enclosure, including the pink side walls, and to rough in the plumbing for the new shower. But that was just the beginning. We've had to remove sheetrock. We've had to install concrete board. We've built a shower bench. We're waterproofing everything. We're installing a sloping floor and more. I can't tell you when the project might end, but it's been preoccupying. I sit down to work on sermon stuff and I wind up thinking about how we will proceed on some phase of the shower project instead. Furthermore, Camp Discovery is a little preoccupying now. It begins a week from Tuesday, and it will operate daily, Monday through Friday, until the end of August. That's more than 3 months. For the second year now, camp will operate for 13 weeks. It's the longest that camp has ever been. Last week, I suggested that we might want to take on a project of offering activities or something that would help to strengthen families in our culture. But that presumes that family exists. I know for some of our campers, the family structure has already been torn apart by crime and drugs. Dad's in jail, and Mom is 99% missing because of her addiction to opioids. I know for some of our campers, the family structure almost doesn't exist, and in a few cases, a 14 or 16-year-old sister is holding the siblings together as a family unit, and that's all there is. It's not supposed to be like that, but it's sometimes a reality. Sometimes there's a grandparent to step into the void, but not always. I know that camp does what we can do, but it's sometimes not very much. We feed 2 meals a day, Monday through Friday, all summer long. But that means that Monday is kind of a fraught day because the kids are showing up after a weekend of no breakfast, no lunch. And they are ready for breakfast Monday morning. They're ready at 7 o'clock. We don't open till 7:30. But we feed them the 2 meals, and we buy them some clothes, we buy them shoes. I hate those flip-flops. They break too easily. They're not a good alternative. And we buy a swimming suit that'll fit them if they need that, but we're limited in what we can do. There was one young man who had been a camper for 8 years, and that's about all the camp you can do is about 8 years. And he had aged out of camp. He was now a junior counselor. And he said some things about the Camp Discovery counselors. And what he said was really interesting. He said that Camp Discovery's counselors were adults you could count on. If they said they'd be there, they would be there. And that experience of being able to trust adults to do what they say they will do is new for some of our campers. One year, I remember campers develop family wherever they can find it, and sometimes they find family at camp. I get asked each summer to be somebody's grandpa, but the first question is, how old are you? And I almost always say I'm 100 years old. And that sets them back a little, but not a lot. They accept that if that's what I say. One year, I was asked to be somebody's grandpa. She said, "Will you be my grandpa?" Sure, I'll be glad to be your grandpa this summer. And so she would go off and tell some other campers, "This is my grandpa." And they'd, "No, that's not your grandpa." And they'd come and ask me. I'd say, "Well, ask her. She knows what's going on." So I was her grandpa that summer. It gets confusing, though, because in the last 2 years, I've had 2 of my actual grandchildren at camp for some portion of the summer. And so campers are still trying to scratch their head and figure out all this business of grandpa. There are some cases where kids will call a counselor mom, and it takes about 2 weeks to get to that spot, but they will create family at camp if they can. There are 2 ways, to get family. One is to inherit family. In that case, you have no choice in the matter. You are stuck with whatever you inherit. For some, the family is a blessing, and for some, not so much. Sometimes the problems seem to be handed down from generation to generation. But the other way to get family is to recruit them. And that's what some of our campers actually do, to create family. As I said, by about the second week, some of the counselors are called mom. Sometimes our friends group can become like family. The intimacy that lifelong friends can enjoy makes them seem like family to us. Church can be family in some ways. Here's a group of like-minded and imperfect people who are learning how to love and to forgive. We see them pretty regularly, and when the occasion arises, we support each other in our joys and in our griefs. But multiply that situation by decades, and we can say that our church is like family to us in the best sense. So how do we strengthen families in our community? One way may be to offer the friendship to others in our church community who may not have kin they can rely on. When I first got to Kentucky, about for the first 2 years, everybody would say in a Kentucky accent, "Who's your kin?" So that was the big question. They needed to tie me into who I was related to. There's the temptation if we try to add new people to our church family because it means so much to us that we may not want outsiders to confuse things. That's where we have to be careful, because we need to remind ourselves that we are God's family, and we're all siblings here. We're all God's children, and as such, we stay open to the marvelous newness that others may bring to our family. We have to exhibit the characteristics of our spiritual parent, who is described as perfect love. It's not easy to emulate the love that we've experienced from our spiritual parent. Love demands that we conquer our selfishness as much as we can. We don't do it perfectly, but we will try to be patient. We will struggle to extinguish spiritual pride, jealousy, and boasting. As much as we can, we will not hold grudges or act out of anger. We will honor the uniqueness of each individual that we meet. And as much as possible, we will protect trust and hope like family. And if or when we fail, we will try harder. So how long does it take to build a new habit like forgiving? Well, I looked it up online. Supposedly, the most optimistic people say it takes about 60 days of practicing that new behavior. The people who are more familiar with human nature say it may take more like 260 days. It depends. But Peter, in the New Testament, asks Jesus about changing a habit, and that is to forgive. Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? The old law said you had to forgive 7 times, and the 8th time, boy, you could let him have it. Jesus says, how many times should you forgive? Not 7 times, but 70 times 7. So if we fail to protect, trust, hope, forgive like family, we are to try again and practice those habits until they become our new operating procedure. So how many times should we try? Until we get it right. That's how many times. Jesus recommends 490 repetitions. Now, God bless. Take care of yourselves. See you in a week.